Alright, so they made it 3 days without needing to hotfix the game, so thumbs up. Been a bit of a crazy week, I guess, if you're an Overwatch fan, especially for me. I'm not gonna lie, even though I said so much about the mid-season patch, I barely played any of it, and it wasn't even like I just knew it was gonna be so terrible. I actually thought I was gonna enjoy it, like, not that I thought it was a good patch, I thought it was terrible, but I thought it'd be like, a fun train wreck to experience for a bit. Obviously bad in the long term, but at least in the here and now it was going to be something different. But I actually got very little chance to play it because, I'm not going to lie, I have lived in the fucking editing cave this week. If you haven't noticed, I usually only do 1 video a week, or maybe 2. Because I was already planning on uploading 4 videos this week, because I had like 4 different, I did 1 video of reviewing someone's VOD that got chopped up into 4 parts so it wasn't way too long. So I thought, yeah, there's 4 videos for this week, that's great. And then on top of that, I also had promised that I was going to finish that Doodle Hex video soon, so it's like, oh shit, I should get that done this week too. Damn, that makes it 5 videos. I sure hope nothing huge happens in the middle of, and then of course the fucking mid-season drop ridiculously early, and now the hotfix is dropping. So Christ, man, am I actually gonna have 7 videos out this week? Oh, whatever. Yeah, I'm not. Either way, that's not what you're here for. What you're here for is the actual hotfix changes. Ramatra, Nemesis form cooldown went from 7 to 8 seconds. They also, as they usually do whenever they rush out a hotfix like this, completely mistyped their patch notes. These bottom 2 changes are not to Nemesis form. I was really confused by this because if I was reading this and I'm like, wait, does that mean that when you hit Nemesis form you're going to lose HP but gain armor now? Because it says base health reduced from 275 to 250 and all that, and I'm like, how does that one work? What's going on there? I thought something might be up, so I double checked it before I started recording this video. I went into a custom game which was roll queue and a custom game which was not roll queue, just to double check that I got the health definitely right. And yeah, basically they wrote it wrong. This is your normal health, not tied to Nemesis form at all. I think I don't know for sure, but probably the way they write this, there isn't an ability to tie the health changes to. And since they've already said, okay, this is for Nemesis form, because they can't say for the next bit, oh, this is for the next ability, it's written wrong. So they have to put this at the top and the Nemesis form at the one at the bottom to make it look right, but they didn't do it right. Anyway, but the more important thing is the actual change. I will say, and I am saying this as someone who loves playing Ramatra and thinks that Ramatra has been consistently underrated, I do celebrate them putting Nemesis form back to 8 seconds. I'm not gonna lie, I remember when it was first set to 7 seconds in Season 7, I'm like, holy fuck, guys, what are you doing? Be careful with that shit, considering, every time you hit it, you're just getting another fucking health bar. It's not necessarily that punching in Nemesis form is overpowered, or having a very slight speed boost is overpowered. It's more just so, you're just generating more health bars and more health bars with every Nemesis form. And 7 seconds is not a long time to wait. That's about as fast as Winston's leap is. That's literally... I'm trying to remember if Doomfist Slam off the top of my head is 7 seconds or 8 seconds. I think it's 7. So, it was literally the same thing as Doomfist Slam. Which, I think Nemesis form might be a little bit stronger than Seismic Slam. So yeah, no, I always thought it was a bit dumb to have it at 7 seconds. I thought that was way too goddamn often. It basically made it so... I mean, don't get me wrong, people always say Omnic form is useless anyway, but I think that's the big reason why I really like Ramatra, and I feel like people underrate him. I feel like people severely underrate Omnic form. Not to say that it's better than Nemesis form. Obviously, Nemesis form is typically stronger. But honestly, there are plenty of situations where I feel like people would say, yeah, you can't do shit in Omnic form here, where I feel like you can actually quite do a lot. I feel like Void Accelerator is actually one of the best tank weapons in the game. It's just that... I don't know, maybe I'm just really good with, projectile weapons like that, which are very, very consistent, but, I don't know, in my experience, I just get more damage on Ramatra than, any other tank in the game, and honestly, a lot of it is in Omnic form. Not to mention, in Omnic form Ramatra, you're, the only tank in the game that's decent at poking at long range. I mean, Malga technically is, but that's the thing. While Malga's technically good at poking at long range, he's also really vulnerable to dying to long-range DPS, and has no shield. So, he can poke really well, it's just that the people that he's going to be poking against can poke him back harder and kill him for trying. Whereas for Ramatra, you've obviously got a shield, so you can get away with that. Anyway, sorry. Point being, the actual change, I think these are good generally. I'm not going to lie, I always thought it was a little bit weird that they gave Ramatra 525 HP outside a Nemesis form. That is quite a lot. I thought that Omnic form... I thought that it was good. They were right to buff the size of Omnic form's projectiles, and I thought, honestly, the damage buff wasn't even that necessary, but it was welcome. But I will say, I never really thought Omnic form needed more health, so I don't mind them losing a little bit of health. I think this is still more than it used to have. It used to have 450 health with no armor, and then I think it was 450 with 100 armor, and I think right now, it's, if I remember correctly, I just realized I should have taken better note, but I think it was 475 with 100 armor. So you've still got 25 extra health than you had compared to before. It's just obviously not as much as it used to be at 525. Either way, it's still a decent amount of health in my opinion, considering you also have shield, and you're still getting a Nemesis form every 8 seconds. It's still pretty common, and you gotta remember, they did not actually nerf the amount of health you get off of Nemesis form. You still get 300 armor, which is effectively 600 effective HP. You still have a button every 8 seconds that gives you an extra 600 HP health bar. That's more than your actual fucking health bar. You know? So, yeah, I actually like this direction. I will admit, for as much as I'm going to be grilling the devs a little bit with, you know, the last patch being an absolute train wreck and this hotfix coming off as a bit desperate, I will say, it's good they did do this hotfix so fast, although it's also kind of hilarious. And 2, I will say that I like this direction for Nemesis form. I do think right now it's kind of one of those buttons that you just hit it the second you get it, like a lot of the time. Like, you don't really do that, but you kind of do that. You know, as I say, every time you hit it, you just get another health bar. And if you get it every 7 seconds, you don't really have to think about it much. It's just 7 seconds is up, another health bar, another health bar, another health bar, you know. And so I kind of like the idea of making it more powerful, but giving it a longer cooldown. I usually tend to be against that kind of thing, but I feel like with specifically Nemesis form Ramatra, already the cooldown's quite short and could, you know, stand to be a little bit longer. And on top of that, it is kind of a brain dead. You basically always want to hit it, and even if you don't want to hit it, you can just instantly cancel and go back to Omnic form. You know, and there are consequences to that, but not a whole lot. You know, you just gotta wait the cooldown again, and if the cooldown's short anyway, that's not really much of a punishment. I feel like, how do I put it? Using Nemesis form correctly is very important with Ramatra, but I feel like if you spam Nemesis form, you don't really get punished that much right now. And I think that making Nemesis form stronger, but making the cooldown longer, does help to make it actually so that hitting Nemesis form at the right time is more important. So yeah, generally, I like this change, actually. Credit where it's due, I like this. And honestly, I will say this, the only thing that's scary about this is I think it means that Ramatra is still going to be kind of a demon. But I think there's maybe a chance it balances out. I don't know, I only got one, like, play session in on this patch before the hotfix came in, and it was quite a long one, but it was with a friend in duo queue, and if you didn't know, because of the way duo queue, like, has changed over the years, duo queue is really fucking weird now. I won't say it's necessarily always awful, but you get very wacky games, is what I'll say, and let's just say that play session, I got quite unlucky with my teammates, you know. The guy I was doing it with was fine, but basically every single game, you know, like, there would always be someone who's just massively fucking dropping the ball. We had one game where we had like an Ana that was playing like they were silver and was constantly typing in chat and raging at everyone while we were literally in the middle of a team fight, who only got like 2,000 healing by the end of the game on fucking Ana when most people had like 8,000. We had a bunch of just like games where like people were really dropping the ball, so I never actually got to feel the power trip on Ramatra because half the games I was playing, my supports were kind of just feeding and not even really paying attention. So, yeah, I never really got to feel it. But I will say, in those games, aside from the support issue, which is just purely like a skill issue on the part of the people playing them, it did feel like, with all the PHARAH Echo everywhere, and with Ramatra being one of the least effective tanks in the game against PHARAH Echo, cough, buff, fucking Ravenous Vortex to actually drag flies out the sky like they said in the trailer, cough, anyway. Considering you are one of the most useless tanks in the game against flyers as Ramatra, like, that is kinda sad, you know, that, like, you're technically so strong, but it does kind of feel like you still just get shut off by PHARAH Echo, and it really does feel like that's more relevant than anything else. So, there is a chance that even though this seems like a light slap on the wrist, it might actually add up to a decent amount, just because, I don't know, I just feel like PHARAH Echo in the sky, with you having less health as well on Ramatra, might get really rough to deal with. But either way, that's my thoughts on the Ramatra changes. Zarya. Okay, so I'm losing my mind here. I am certain I remembered that and I don't know if I'm gaslighting myself into believing something never happened. I was certain that in Season 6, I remember they tried to buff Zarya a while ago so that her ally bubbles were stronger than her, self-bubble. And the ally bubble, the thing they did is they made it 25% bigger, they made it have an 8-second cooldown rather than a 10-second cooldown, and they made it so the bubble had 250 health, so it would give 45 charge instead of 40. Only on the ally bubble. And then later, I remember they reverted some of it. They reverted the health, so it went back to 200, so you only got 40 charge still. They reverted the size partially, so it was only 10% bigger instead of 25% bigger. But I'm pretty sure they never reverted the cooldown from 8 back to 10 seconds. And I swear I even remember seeing times where Zarya, I bubble an ally and I see the cooldown say 8 seconds instead of 10. But apparently I'm gaslighting myself, and apparently according to this patch note, unless it's just factually wrong, unless they just miswrote the patch notes again. Apparently it actually was set back to 10 for a while now, and now it's 11. I have no idea if I'm just making shit up in my head right now. I swear I remember that it went back to 8 seconds. But whatever, either way. Point being, bubbles are now going to last a quarter of a second less time, and they are now going to take 1 second longer to come back. This is tough to say, because Zarya still gets 45 charge per bubble. That is a lot. And she still has longer bubbles than she had before the buff, which is also quite a big deal. But 1 extra second on the cooldown of every bubble is quite a significant nerf. How do I want to call this? I'm going to say this. My gut feeling on this one is this makes Zarya as a DPS tank, better, but Zarya as a tank worse, if you know what I mean. You still have 45 charge per bubble, and your bubbles only take 1 second longer to come back. So if your priority with Zarya is to just generate stupidly high fucking amounts of charge, then I feel like, if anything, this is a net buff, and that you can kill people even faster than before. And I do think that's probably the more relevant playstyle of Zarya, considering that I've mentioned before, the huge reason why I predicted that Zarya was going to be the tank to beat this meta was because I saw that Zarya was one of the only tanks in the game that could completely bypass armor with her beam, while still being pretty good against flying characters like PHARAH and Echo. That basically panned out. I mean, it's only been 3 days, but from what I saw, the kind of general consensus on the meta was that the main demons were Ramatra and Zarya, which were the very 2 characters I put in my top 2. So I feel pretty happy I got that one right. And the other one, Alright, so I just tripped over my words and cut that out. I was just going to say that, as an offensive Zarya, this is overall a buff. The only thing that sucks is, if you are in a situation as Zarya where you're just trying to fucking stay alive, I imagine you are going to kind of be suffering. Yes, a second extra bubble does help, but not as much as having 1, second extra on the wait time for each bubble is going to hurt. I think, if you're the Zarya that's, trying to hold a corner under tons of pressure and not getting a lot of help, and you're like, oh god, I need my bubble as fast as fucking possible, these changes are going to make you cry a little bit, and you're going to, really struggle to, stay alive. But if you're playing a super aggressive Zarya, and you can really push in, and you're playing Zarya so you can just beam down the enemy Orisa, or the enemy Ramatra, or the enemy Malgar, or whatever, then I think that, overall, this is probably a net buff still, compared to pre-mid-season Zarya. I'm not going to make predictions about the tank meta this time, because since this is very much more like an instant reaction to a hotfix patch, and also it's obviously a smaller patch because it's a hotfix, I don't feel like I can say too much. I feel like Zarya probably isn't literally the best tank in the game anymore, but probably still top 3. I'm not exactly sure who takes her place, whether Ramatra takes her place because the nerfs to Zarya seem more significant than the ones to Ramatra, or whether someone completely new comes out of nowhere, I wasn't expecting this, oh shit, I guess they're the main tank now. I must admit, I'm not entirely sure right now, because I haven't had as much time to think about this as I did for the main mid-season patch. Either way, moving on to the damage. I burst out fucking laughing when I saw this change, just because, okay, oh my god, man, this is fucking comedy, you can't make this shit up. Okay, PHARAH. Base health reduced from 250 to 225. I don't think most of you know why this is so funny. So don't get me wrong, Hey, they finally fucking nerfed PHARAH. It took them long enough, you know. That's already the funny part. But, like, oh my god, it's so tone-deaf, it's actually hilarious. So don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're finally doing something that actually matters to PHARAH. They should have done this they should have been in the initial mid-season. This should have been happening before the fucking mid-season. But either way, we're finally here, and I say we're finally here as if it's already done. What I'm about to follow this up with is, I still think PHARAH's going to be the best fucking character in the game. Don't get me wrong, I understand that 25 health can make a huge difference, but I think it depends on context. You know, I will admit, health is always something that's thrown me off a little bit, because in the past I've always thought to myself, 25 health should not be a big deal. But then I've seen that Zen has gone from the worst support in the game to the most broken support in the game if you give him 25 extra health on 2 separate occasions, and I've seen Cass become extremely more, like, viable depending on whether he has an extra 25 health or not, and it's kind of made me think, but sometimes Cass gets an extra 25 health and it doesn't change anything, and it's kind of made me sit there and think, okay, what's going on here? Why is it that sometimes characters getting more or less health changes nothing, and sometimes it changes everything? And I feel like the answer is, it depends on the kind of people that are threatening them. And I think the answer is, if you're playing dive characters, if you're playing characters like Tracer, Genji, like, you know, Ball, Winston, that 25 health is the end of the world. That's why Zen breaks the game when he gets 25 extra health. Because the thing that keeps Zen in check are people like Genji, like Tracer, like Sombra, like Venture, blah blah blah. And then you give Zen 25 extra health and they start living all these fights where they should die against Sombras and Tracers and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden the whole balance of the game is thrown off. And similarly for Cass, he's kind of unfortunately being designed as a character to exist to counter dive DPS. And so obviously him getting extra 25 health also matters against them. However, against a poke team, having more health doesn't really tend to help that much, and against a rush team, it barely does anything. Because, of course, if they're close enough to be able to hit you, they can hit you hard enough to kill you, and having 25 extra health isn't going to help you. I think that this nerf might not matter that much for PHARAH. Because, okay, don't get me wrong, no rush characters are going to be able to catch her when she's in the sky, and rush characters are so short range, but dive characters are also pretty short range. PHARAH's not worried about getting dove. The thing that PHARAH is worried about is getting poked out the sky, but as I said, I don't think health changes are that relevant when poke is what you're scared of. Because I feel like, in most situations, like, if you die, you are going to die anyway, health change or not. Now, obviously, that's not all situations, but I think that's going to be most situations. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that PHARAH is still one of the most mobile characters in the game, who can also still effectively kill in 2 shots with a melee or a concussive blast. Because I forgot to mention, in the mid-season video, I got a bit confused. The concussive blast change, I completely forgot that they gave damage to the explosion as well as the direct hit, and they only removed the damage on the explosion, not the direct hit. In other words, the whole one-shot combo they were nerfing with the last quote-unquote PHARAH nerf that was actually a buff to a concussive blast, yeah, you can literally still do it. You just have to direct hit it now instead of just, you know, splashing it, which is hilarious. That they literally did not even address the one-shot combo that PHARAH had, or two-shot combo, whatever you want to call it. The two-shot combo that PHARAH had that they literally said they applied the big quotes nerf for. So yeah, that was kind of hilarious. Either way. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I do think this is a nerf to PHARAH that does something. I just don't think it does a lot, you know? I still think PHARAH is going to be the best DPS in the game. I think most of the time, if a PHARAH knows what she's doing, she's not going to die that much more often for having 25 less health, because it's not dive DPS she's scared of, and it's only going to really matter for dive DPS, ultimately, because small breakpoints make such a big difference with characters that have that low DPS and need to get that close to be effective for the trade-off of having all the mobility that they have. Thingy. So yeah, I don't know, especially considering how insanely mobile PHARAH is, with 3 mobility cooldowns, a mobility passive, being, you know, the main flying character in the game, and having extremely terrifying burst damage up close, even if you do get close to her. You know, I just feel like PHARAH isn't going to change much, you know? I really feel like 25 less health isn't going to make a big difference. But that's just the first half of this reason why this is funny. You know why the second reason this is actually just hilarious? This is actually just like, I am literally transforming in real life to the skull emoji right now as we speak. No, but seriously, So, okay, if you missed it, the Reddit AMA the devs did in Season 10, Arg, the really well-known, like, Hanzo main, got a question in about Hanzo. Now, I will say this, my stance on post-Season 9 Hanzo, once he lost his one-shot, is, I think it's kind of fair from a pure fun perspective for Hanzo mains to be complaining about losing the one-shot, but I'm gonna say this. I'm not gonna lie, speaking for me personally, first of all, I actually like Hanzo way more now he can't one-shot. I think one-shot characters are really bullshit and cancer, and honestly, I enjoy playing Hanzo more now that it's easier to land arrows but you can't one-shot. Then again, I will also say Hanzo is a sniper character, and sniper characters tend to be my worst characters, and I fully admit that probably part of the reason why I enjoy Hanzo more now is because he's less of a sniper character. You know, he still snipes, but not really as much. You know, not as much. And so he's more effective as a cast counter and as a tank buster. And to be fair, I do think it's not necessarily healthy to add even more tank buster DPS to the game. But let's be real, Hanzo was already a tank buster. Now he's just even more a tank buster. So yeah, anyway. So either way, I do think that it's pretty fair for Hanzo mains to be saying that he's, like, less fun now, but I will say this, I think Hanzo, if anything, is actually stronger than he used to be. I don't know, he felt like a very gimmicky character most of the time before. That didn't mean that he wasn't terrifying. How do I put it? You know, he's one of those characters that's terrifying, but does that mean he's strong? Sometimes yes, but a lot of the times no. You know, and I kind of think that's almost worse, because if you're the guy terrorizing everyone, you don't even necessarily get to, like, be OP, because your character isn't OP, they're just terrifying. But everyone feels as if they're dealing with a character that's OP. So, you know, everyone's kind of miserable. You don't actually get to be OP, but everyone who's dealing with you can't help but feel like you're overpowered, you know? I really hate it when characters get that status where they're sort of terrifying, but they're not really even OP. You know? You could even argue Mauga's kind of in that state right now, you know, but a bit of a grey area. Either way, point being, I'm saying all this to say, I don't necessarily fully agree with Arcos' not Arcos, fucking that's the Ryan main that just, like, snipes streamers. Getting them mixed up now. With Arga's point, Argus, you know, I've never actually had to say it out loud, I've always read that name, and now I'm realising how hard that is for me to pronounce. Arch's points about how they need to bring back Hanzo one-shot and how it reduced so much skill expression of the character. I will admit, I kind of don't want it to come back. I really, really hate dealing with it. It leads to so many bullshit scenarios. I also have now been headshot out of invis while not revealed by a sonic arrow at all, while no one knew I was there. I've been fucking Hanzo headshot out of invis of Sombra on 7 different occasions now. How does this keep happening? I don't know how they keep headshotting me out of invis. I hate it. Anyway, okay, sorry. I just wanted to get that little tangent aside. Hey, I've got to milk this video for all it's worth. There's not that much in the hotfix. No, but seriously. Why am I talking about Hanzo and PHARAH on screen? In the Reddit AMA, when they were confronted about the removal of the one-shot, the devs basically said, yeah, we don't really like the one-shot existing. We thought it was pretty unfun to play against, which I will fully agree with them on that one, I will say. I am enjoying this game a whole lot more now that I don't randomly die to a Hanzo that wasn't even aiming at me, was aiming at someone else, but that arrow passes through them and then hits me in the head when he didn't even know I was there. You know, whenever the fact that I have to deal with that no longer, you know, that's no longer like a way I just instantly lose games, that feels really, really good. But I will say this. What they said in response is, we're planning on potentially reducing the health of some heroes to 225, you know? Ever since we did these health changes, we put everyone to 250, but we might put some people to 225. We might play around now. You know, back when we had 200, we could only really go to 150 or 175, and we couldn't go any lower. But now we got more breakpoints, and I thought, yeah, that's a cool idea. I do think it'd be nice to add more, like, breakpoints for different heroes. More heroes that don't just all have 250 health. I like that idea. I like the idea that means that Hanzo might have a couple other characters that if they're particularly deadly or scary, maybe he can kill them a bit faster. I don't know, if they gave some other compensatory buffs to Junkrat, maybe Junkrat could be a good candidate for a character with 225 health. He is kind of a glass cannon, so, you know, I'm not saying, like, oh, Junkrat OP. I'm just saying, like, if maybe Junkrat did become OP, if, like, later down the line a meta shows up where he's really good, maybe if they want to nerf him, maybe they give him 225 health, you know? You see what I'm saying? I did not think they were talking about PHARAH. PHARAH was not the character that came to mind when I was thinking characters that Hanzo will need to be able to one-shot, you know? And it's just hilarious because when the fuck does PHARAH ever get close enough for Hanzo to actually one-shot her, you know? So it's kind of like, okay, you know, when you were saying, like, oh, we're going to take these 250 HP heroes and put them to 225, so there's still some people that Hanzo can one-shot, you know, I was thinking you were talking about, you know, maybe some more glass cannon-like characters, like, I don't know, let's take a look, maybe Illari would go to 225, maybe Kiriko would go to 225, maybe Mercy, well, actually, not right now, obviously Mercy needs help right now, but you know what I mean, just conceptually, maybe Moira, maybe maybe, I don't know, maybe Sombra goes to 225. Maybe some of these characters, maybe Sojourn goes to 225. You know, there's plenty of characters that I could see. Yeah, if you put that to 225, that'd be pretty reasonable. PHARAH, while I do agree with nerfing her, I don't think giving her 225 health really fixes anything. And also, is probably the one target that Hanzo is never going to get a chance to one-shot. This just feels like such a hilarious kick in the balls to every Hanzo main that wants their one-shot back to be like, hey, here you go, you can now one-shot one character. It's the one in the sky. Have fun hitting them with arrows. You know, it's just like, what? Well, okay then. Support, Illari, Healing Pylon, cooldown increase from 12 to 14 seconds, Captive Stun, ultimate cost increased by 12%. Okay, so, first of all, the Healing Pylon cooldown change. I know that I have waged a war on support cooldowns, and I say that Blizzard has no fucking idea, Team 4 have no idea what they're doing with supports, thingy. And because of that reason, because they have no idea what they're doing with supports, every time there's a support nerf, instead of actually fixing the base problems with support, that being that they don't have to, like, a significant portion of the support roster doesn't have to express any skill to stay alive, they just have to hit buttons, and those buttons don't even require any skill to use, they're literally just, you press the button and you don't die, cough Immortality Field, cough Suzu, cough Healing Pylon, cough Rejuvenating Dash, cough. Anyway, thingy. And you might be thinking that I would also wage a war against the Healing Pylon cooldown increase, because it's as I say, every single time they have a problem with support, instead of actually fixing the problem, they're just like, let's just make the problem take 2 more seconds to come back. Let's just make the problem take 3 more seconds to come back. How about 4? How about 5? And we never actually fix the problem, we just make it so it happens less often, but it still happens. And then that leads to a domino effect where then supports feel like the only way that they stay alive is by holding their buttons forever and not playing the video game. And they're right, that's how they don't die, is holding their buttons forever and not playing the video game. And so, no one gets to play the video game. If someone wants to try and kill a support because they want to play the video game and the support is making it so no one can die, well, guess what? They can't, because the support has done nothing all game but hold their button, waiting for the moment that someone might try and attack them, so that they can press their button and say, now I'm not dead. And maybe even you're dead for trying to attack me. Which, you know, that's not super fun. So yeah, this is a dynamic that's unfun from all sides. But I will say, Healing Pylon is the one exception where I do think you can fix it, quote-unquote, with cooldown increases. And the reason why Healing Pylon is the one exception is, Illari is supposed to be countered by Dive. Dive characters should be able to break her Healing Pylon. If you can't keep your Healing Pylon up, then it goes from a 6 versus 5 to a 5 versus 5. Only when it's a 5 versus 5, you've gone from having 3 DPS, 2 supports, and 1 tank, to 1 tank, 3 DPS, and 1 support, which is worse than having 2 supports and 2 DPS. So, yeah. You're at a disadvantage, even though it's technically still a 5v5 once you've lost your Healing Pylon. But you're at a significant advantage just for having it. Point being, I think that Healing Pylon needs to have a cooldown that is long enough so that when it breaks, there is a window where people can do a dive to break the Healing Pylon, wait, get healed, go back in again, and then start another dive without the Healing Pylon already being fucking back. And it's, as I said, all the way back in Season 7, man. Winston. He has to fucking do a whole dive just to break Healing Pylon half the time. Not to mention the Healing Pylon takes 3 fucking fully charged right clicks to break. So that's like an eternity. Quite literally, even with the buff to the speed of his right click, the best case scenario for a Winston, if he has to use his right click to break a Healing Pylon because it's like on the ceiling or something and he can't reach it, is it will quite literally take just over 2.5 seconds for him to kill a single fucking Healing Pylon. That's assuming that the Healing Pylon does not get any healing of its own, does not get blocked or obscured, does not get any protection, and that you can just stand there still in the middle of enemy spawn for 2.5 seconds without dying, which, let's be real, that's not happening. So, yeah. Long story short, Healing Pylon is a nightmare for Winston. And it's especially a nightmare because you might notice that cooldown is 12 seconds by default. Well, Winston's leap is 6 seconds. So if you have to do a whole dive on the enemy team just to break a healing fucking pylon, and then you have to jump in, do some damage, break the pylon, jump out. Okay, so you've jumped out and the pylon now has 12 seconds left before it comes back. So now you go get healed. But wait, you can't get back in until you wait another 6 seconds for your leap. You need 6 seconds for the first leap and 6 seconds for the second leap. So, hang on a minute. That means that every single time you dive Healing Pylon, it just fucking comes back. You need 6 seconds to go in and 6 seconds to get out as Winston, at minimum. which is 12 seconds. So at 12-second cooldown, healing pylon is quite literally, like, uncounterable as Winston. There's nothing you can do about it. And the best part is that they increased its health from 100 back to 125, so you can't even two-shot it with right-clicks now, it's got to be 3 shots. And it's like, what the fuck, man? So it going to 14 seconds is at least something. At 14 seconds, you have a gracious 2-second window as Winston to dive them again, follow up on your last dive, and maybe get a kill while the healing pylon's down. A fucking 2-second window. But hey, it's a window. Nah, put this back to 15 seconds. 15 seconds was good. Honestly, for all I care, put it to 18 seconds. You know what? Yeah, healing pylon's fucking broken. Either nerf it, or make its cooldown ridiculously long. I like the idea of nerfing it, but I mean, I know we're not going that direction because we buffed it, didn't we? As a side note, that is why we have to reduce her ultimate costs. Sorry, increase her ultimate cost. That's why we have to make it so Cactus Sun takes longer, is because they buffed Healing Pylon, so she now heals stupid amounts if she's allowed to keep a Healing Pylon alive. Like, Illari actually fucking out-heals Anna now if she just gets a Pylon that just doesn't, like, you know, get pressured. And as a result, that means that she gets way more ult charge, so she gets to spam her ult, so they need to tone down the amount of Cactus Sun she gets, because she's getting more ult charge, because she's getting more healing, because they made Healing Pylon already more OP than it was, when already it was too overpowered before. So that was great. Oh, and also they nerfed Boop. Okay. You know, this is funny. I'll admit, this is also funny, but it's bad, man. Okay, so the Lucio nerf, the Boop nerf. So, we gotta talk about something, man. I want to make it clear, I do not say any of this, like, with pleasure. I don't like being the guy who's, like, advocating for Lucio nerfs. But I think we have to come down to earth right now. Lucio Boop is fucking stupid in its current state. Like, I put it this way. I don't mind Lucio having a strong boop. I mind Lucio having a strong boop while still being the most mobile support in the game who also has it on a 4-second cooldown. Like, if boop was something that Lucio could only use every, like, 8 or 10 seconds, I guess I wouldn't mind so much. It's knowing that Lucio basically always has boop and can basically always go wherever the fuck he wants and I can't really stop him. And when he boops me, I not only get a full, like, nearly a full second of all of my movement being completely locked out. If you didn't know that, that's why boop hits so hard. It actually locks out your movement mid-boop, so that you can't fight back against the boop until you've already been pushed. So, first of all, getting hit by boop is essentially, like, a mini stun. Like, it's not just a knockback, it actually effectively stuns your character. Like, you can still press abilities and you can still shoot, but you can't actually move until the movement lockout ends, which they made ridiculously long when they buffed Boop. It's never been anywhere near this long before. So, when you add up all the knockback together, Boop is actually fucking ridiculous on Lucio. When you boop someone who doesn't have the tank passive, they go fucking flying and they can't even control their character. It may as well just be a fucking stun, you know? And that is kinda bad, you know? Kinda not a good thing. And the way they should have addressed this is they should have found a happy middle point for Boop. I think they either needed to tone it back down, but keep some of the buffs and see if they could find a happy medium, but I understand why they didn't do that, because any kind of Boop nerf people aren't going to be happy with. So I get why they didn't want to go that route. The route I would have gone is what I just said. Boop is a 4-second cooldown, man. That is, like, nothing. 4-second cooldown in this game for an ability that you don't even really want to spam. Like, Boop is not the kind of ability you usually want to spam anyway. A 4-second cooldown for an ability like that is kind of ludicrous, and it was only really justified by how weak and pitiful it felt before. But after the Boop buffs, it's kind of ludicrous that, yeah, you have a Boop that strong that's effectively a mini stun that you have every 4 seconds. Like, fucking imagine if Orisa Javelin was on a 4-second cooldown. That's Lucio Boop. Except at least Orisa doesn't have mobility. Okay, obviously I'm being a bit spicy comparing Lucio Boop to Orisa Spear, but at the end of the day, they are both effectively extremely high knockback mini stuns. You know? They both essentially fulfill the same role, only one of them's on a 4-second cooldown. Anyway, yeah. Personally, I like the world where Boop, as I say, is like an 8 to 10 second cooldown, but is just as strong as it is now, and we remove the tank passive. So Lucio can boop tanks, Lucio can boop people off the map, but it's not something you can just fucking spam at people, you know? You can't just go boop, 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 and you're just trying to be like there, trying to fucking play the game, and like, I don't know, you're trying to play Reinhardt, and you're about to swing on someone, and boop, oh, okay, now I can't get to them. God damn it, that fucking Lucio's annoying. At least it's just gonna happen once, right? Okay, now I'm gonna swing on this, boop, oh, okay, right, well, guess I can't go that direction, boop, okay, guess I can't go that direction, boop. Can someone shoot this Lucio? okay, no one can shoot this Lucio. And because I'm Reinhardt and all I've got is a hammer, this Lucio is never going to die to me, because how the fuck am I supposed to kill a Lucio that's on the ceiling, you know, when I've got nothing but a hammer? It's like, okay then, so I guess I just can't play the game. If I try and go left, boop. If I try and go right, boop. If I try and go forward, boop. And if I try and run back, boop, oh, I'm off the map, you know? And it's like, okay, right, well, I literally just don't have counterplay to this. He literally just plays the game for me, you know? Thingy. And, like, I don't think that matters if it's just once in a while. It's the fact that it's all the time, that Lucio's always faster than you, always more mobile than you, always can chase you down, and yet also always gets to have boop. He needs to have at least some downtime where he can't fucking boop you, you know? I just feel like boop is free. That's the problem. Boop is free, you know? There's no real downside to going for a boop with Lucio. You can try to boop someone at a stupid time, or you can use boop in a situation where it honestly doesn't even really achieve much except pissing your opponent off. But it doesn't matter. You get it back in 4 fucking seconds. And it's not like having to get close to the enemy is a bad thing for you as Lucio, not only because you already do more damage at close, but also because you're so fast that if you don't want to be at close, you can get out before anyone can chase you or punish you. So, yeah, Denge. I do think that boot buffs boot nerfs needed to happen, but I honestly gotta say, I don't even know if this is it. First of all, because this doesn't even nerf the lockout period, so I feel like Lucio boop is probably still a problem. And second of all, because this actually doesn't change anything. Do you want to know why they reduced the knockback by 10%? It's because the tank passive in the last patch got reduced by 10%. You know the knockback reduction? So they did 10% less knockback reduction, and then 10% less knockback. Basically what this adds up to is, they want to keep it so that Lucio boop fucking nukes DPS and supports, but doesn't move tanks. They want to keep it like that. And it's kind of like, ugh. You know, I know why they have it like that, because they don't want to nerf boop because everyone loves boop, but they also don't want to have tanks getting bullied by boop all the time. But I feel like at the end of the day, I think you just gotta admit, this was a fucking mistake. The boop buff was a mistake. We either gotta give boop a cost, or we gotta go back on our word and put boop to back to how it was for the most part, with maybe just some small compensatory buffs, you know? Again, I really think the whole tank passive as a whole was really kind of a mistake. You know, I was thinking this take earlier, but I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to send it, but I'm seeing more and more people say it, and you know what? I think they're right. I agree with the idea that knockback reduction should never have been a tank passive. It should have been a Reinhardt passive. Like, I'm looking at the tank roster and I'm thinking, okay, who needs knockback reduction? And I'm thinking, okay, so Reinhardt needs it. He needs it to exist. And then it's like, okay, who else? And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like not many other tanks actually really need knockback reduction, you know? Ramatra, maybe. Roadhog, definitely, it's annoying when you get knocked back, especially when it screws over your hooks, but I would argue that's counterplay, baby. You know? What's supposed to be the counterplay to getting hooked, if not booping the hog so he can't get his hook combo? You know? For some characters, that's all the counterplay they have, and it's kind of been removed by the tank passive. This is what I mean by the tank passive essentially existing to shut down counterplay, you know. Knockback resistance, for the most part, only exists to shut down counterplay. And the reason why it's fine on Reinhardt, the reason why Reinhardt needed knockback reduction, is because on Reinhardt, you're playing the melee character. On Reinhardt, getting knocked back means you don't get to play the video game, and there's nothing you can do to play around it for the most part. And on top of that, because Reinhardt is one of the most exploitable characters in the game, as the only melee character in the game, really, that also means that you don't really need knockback to counterplay him. There's already, if anything, too much counterplay to Reinhardt. Whereas for a Roadhog, there's not a lot of counterplay. You need knockbacks to be able to counterplay Roadhog, or Ramatra, or Mauga, or Winston, or Sigma. Basically every tank in this entire game except Reinhardt does not need knockback reduction, and adding it to the game does nothing but remove counterplay to them. And Reinhardt's really the only character where having knockback reduction makes sense, in my opinion. Which is especially disappointing considering, if I remember correctly, he literally already had the Steadfast passive which reduced knockback in Overwatch 1. And they removed it to turn it into the tank passive for everyone, but it kind of just didn't do anything good for anyone, you know? Okay, so overall, what do I say this patch is? I say it's hilarious. I don't know. Like, I won't say it's terrible. I think, again, the Ramatra changes are good, if maybe a bit of a light slap on the wrist. The Zarya changes, I'll give them credit. I don't like the idea that you might be exploding more on Zarya, when that's already one of the only things that feels bad about Zarya, when you're just exploding and you can't run away because you have no mobility and, like, your character does nothing but bubble. But I will say, I do think these are pretty smart nerfs overall to Zarya. Keeps her still having a lot of skill expression and potential, but definitely puts her in check a little bit more. The PHARAH one's just hilarious. I mean, I'm glad they're finally nerfing PHARAH, but Jesus Christ, man, you need to nerf her a little harder than this, you know? And just the fact it's just... This is just a hilarious middle finger to all the Hanzo mains out there, but you know what? I don't have a problem with that. That's hilarious. I will say, okay, credit where it's due. I get mad looking at the Illari changes because, you know, I'm mad at the state of support, but I will admit, the actual changes themselves, I think the healing pylon change is quite... I mean, again, 14 seconds is like, come on, make it 15, make it 16, whatever. 14 is pretty like, oh boy, I get a 2-second window to dive them as Winston. I'm so blessed. But, I mean, yeah, 14 seconds, whatever. There's a window now. There wasn't a window before, there's a window now. That's something. And the Cactus Sun nerf, I already mentioned, I know why they had to do that. It's because they increased the healing of the pylon, and while I disagree with them increasing the healing of the pylon in the first place, this is the correct response. I guess, yeah, I mean, it was already kind of the problem with a lot of the most recent patches, but I think that's still the theme with this patch, is it's a lot of the correct response to a problem that you created last patch, you know, if you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so you've kind of fixed the problem, and this is about the best response you could have done, but you also could have just not created the problem in the first place, you know? That seems to be, like, the running theme for the past, like, 50 sets of patch notes. So yeah, they gotta figure out what they're gonna do with Boop, man. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.